Deep in the forests of West Africa, Gold Coast, now Ghana, a kingdom was born in blood, gold, and unity. A kingdom so powerful it humbled its enemies, terrified European empires, its warriors crushed armies, defied the mighty British Empire, and drank from the skull of a fallen British general. It even expanded and included parts of Ivory Coast and Togo. This is not myth, this is the story and rise of the Ashanti Kingdom. Asanteman, one of Africa's greatest empires, one of the most feared and respected kingdoms in African history, and its legacy still lives till today. In this video, we are going to uncover how it rose from scattered clans into a golden empire that shook the world. The Ashanti Kingdom, known as Asanteman in the Twi language, was established by some of the Akan people who migrated from the old Ghana Empire to the Gold Coast region, now Ghana. The term Asante, a Twi word that the British corrupted to Ashanti, literally means because of war. This derives from Essa, meaning war, and Enti, meaning because. Initially, they were not known as Asante, but belonged to the Adansi, the first among the 5 original Akan states from which all clans of the Akan forest states traced their ancestry, including the Denkyira. The Ashanti did not start as royalty, but emerged as minor states of the Adansi dispersed communities inhabiting regions known as Amansi and Kwaman in the dense rainforests of what was then the Gold Coast and is now Ghana. For generations, they lived under the shadow of stronger neighbors, trading gold, kola nuts, and slaves, while paying heavy tribute to greater powers like Denkyira. Denkyira, which was the first great kingdom among all the Akan states and the source of all Ghanaian Akan kingship traditions and culture, governed a rich forest region. The forest was abundant in gold, fertile in land, and populated by people who would not remain divided forever. While they were under the Denkyira during the reign of King Ntim they were being oppressed by the ruler. It was for this reason that these independent, small, scattered groups or states of Adansi, mainly the leaders of the cities of Nsuta, Dwaben, Mampong, Bekwai, and Kokofu, came together to form a coalition and became Asante or Ashanti because of war. This coalition was established to resist and fight against the oppression of Denkyira under Ntim Jakari. Before their coming together, Osei Tutu, who would later become the first king of the united Ashanti Kingdom, Asanteman, and was next in line to lead his own small state, was sent to Denkyira to learn the kingship system, since Denkyira was the first Akan state to establish the kingship culture of the Akans. During this period, Osei Tutu I encountered and formed a friendship with Okomfo Anokye, who would subsequently serve as his spiritual counselor and become the spiritual foundation of the Ashanti Kingdom, playing a crucial role in securing Ashanti independence from Denkyira. Okomfo Anokye, also known as Obiri Komfo, was essentially the true mastermind behind the Ashanti Kingdom. Both Osei Tutu I and Okomfo Anokye later fled from Denkyira to Akwemu, where Okomfo Anokye originally hailed from, seeking protection when Denkyira wanted them dead for various reasons. Akwemu was also another powerful state among the Akans besides Denkyira and served as the perfect place for asylum. From Akwemu, they both traveled to Osei Tutu's city of Kwaman. During the late 1600s, Osei Tutu emerged as the primary leader of the fragmented Adansi states. According to legend, Okomfo Anokye and Osei Tutu I successfully assembled all the chiefs of the dispersed Adansi communities who inhabited the territories surrounding Amansi and Kwaman. Then Okomfo Anokye performed a ritual in which he petitioned the gods of the land to designate a leader for all the assembled clans. He accomplished this by raising his hand toward the sky and summoning forth a stool made of pure gold, which descended from the heavens and settled gently upon Osei Tutu's lap. At that moment, the dispersed Ashanti states were transformed from mere forest families into something greater. They were one nation, one people, bound not by fear, but by destiny, led by Osei Tutu I. This was no ordinary throne. This was the Golden Stool, known as Sikajwa Kofi by the Ashantis. It is the living soul of the Ashanti nation. It held not just gold, but the sunsum, which means spirit of all the clans which came together to form the Ashanti. Every Ashanti man, woman, and child, past, present, and yet unborn. It was sacred, untouchable. No one, not even the king himself, is allowed to sit on it, for it was not made for a man, but for the people. Osei Tutu I, the first king of the newly formed Asante people, was not merely a warrior wielding a sword. He was a statesman. He was a strategist who recognized that no small individual state could survive independently when confronted by more powerful forces like Denkyira. Beside him was his devoted companion, Okomfo Anokye, who served as priest, legislator, and spiritual guide. His pronouncements held prophetic power, and his rituals forged bonds among men stronger than any metal shackles. Together, they had created something the forest had never seen before: unity. But unity can only be tested through trials. The ultimate trial came rapidly. The Denkyira Empire, led by the mighty and arrogant Antim imposed tribute as was customary, demanding gold, enslaved people, merchandise, and additionally the principal wives of the chiefs from the states that had joined together to create Ashanti. For years, the Ashanti had quietly paid what was demanded, but they were tired of being treated badly. Now, working together under their leader Osei Tutu I and his spiritual guide and powerful priest Okomfo Anokye, they said no. They put rocks in the basket that was supposed to hold the payments, cut off the ears of the people who came to collect the tribute, and sent them back to Denkyira. Additionally, after uniting the states and becoming the Ashanti leader, Osei Tutu I launched his first military campaign against the Dorma people to avenge the death of his uncle Obiri Yeboah, who had fallen in battle against the Dorma, while Osei Tutu was studying kingship practices in Denkyira. Osei Tutu I won this battle, killing the king of Dorma and avenging his uncle. He did this without informing the king of Denkyira, who was the overlord of both the Ashantis and Dorma. These two events led to the battle between Denkyira and the Ashantis, known as the Battle of Feyase. Entim and Denkyira had declared war on the Ashantis. In 1701, at the Battle of Feyase, the Denkyira marched with confidence, believing they would easily defeat the Ashantis after they refused to pay tribute. However, what they encountered was not the same divided people. They faced warriors united by the Golden Stool, warriors who no longer fought for their individual small state, but for a nation united under the Golden Stool. They were also strengthened with spiritual support and protection provided by Okomfo Anokye, the spiritual advisor to the Ashanti people. Before the battle, he performed rituals that would guarantee the Ashanti's victory and even predicted that the battle would not extend beyond Feyase. The forest roared with the sound of muskets, drums, and war cries at Feyase, the air filled with gunpowder smoke as thousands clashed. The Denkyira, once feared by all, threw their strength against the Ashanti ranks. But the Ashanti fought with a new fire. Their lines held firm. Their chiefs led with fury. Osei Tutu himself rode at the head of his men, rallying them with the promise that today was the day they would break their chains, and also Okomfo Anokye chanting and invoking spirits on the battlefield throughout the battle to empower and be with the warriors. Legend has it in Ashanti history that he chanted for one whole week continuously while the battle was at its peak, and as he ended the chant and got back to the physical realm, the battle had ended. When the dust cleared, it was the Denkyira who lay broken, their king captured and killed, their armies shattered. The unthinkable had happened. The Ashanti had destroyed their masters. That victory was more than just a battle won. It was a birth. The Ashanti were no longer subjects. They were conquerors. And from that day, the forests of West Africa echoed with a new name, Ashanti, a nation that the world would soon learn to fear and respect. With Denkyira's defeat, the Ashantis established themselves as the new rulers over all Twi-speaking Akan states in the area, aside from a few they would conquer later. They claimed all the wealth of the formerly mighty and prosperous Denkyira, capturing all their vast gold reserves. According to oral tradition, it required over a week for the Ashantis to gather all the gold from Denkyira's Sika Dan, in Chui meaning money or gold storehouse, and carry it back to Kwaman. They also took control over all European trade from their capital in Kwaman, which was later renamed Kumasi following Okomfo Anokye's council to relocate it to a central position, which was Kumasi. He planted two kum trees and commanded them to grow on the same day. The tree that thrived successfully marked the location of Kumasi. The capital in Chui Kumasi translates to under the kum tree. The other tree withered and perished, and that place became a separate city named Kumewu, meaning Kum died. The Ashanti started constructing more than mere battlefield triumphs. They started constructing a kingdom. The new king, Asante Osei Tutu I, was no longer just a warlord. He was the embodiment of unity, the living guardian of the Golden Stool, the soul of the nation. His authority stretched far beyond Kumasi, carried on the voices of chiefs, soldiers, and envoys. Realizing the strengths of a loose confederation of Akan states, Osei Tutu I strengthened centralization of the surrounding Akan groups and expanded the powers of the judiciary system within the centralized government. This loose confederation of small city-states grew into a kingdom and eventually an empire looking to expand its borders. From 1701 to 1715, Osei Tutu I defeated the surrounding kingdoms of Chuifo, Wassa, and Aowin. Under Osei Tutu's successor, Opoku Wari I, the organized and determined Ashanti forces advanced through woodlands and grasslands. They expanded their boundaries, covering a large portion of what is now Ghana. Opoku Wari I oversaw the incorporation of Akan states including Bonoman, Jaaman, Achim, and Kwehu into Asante through military campaigns conducted between 1720 and 1750. State after state came under Ashanti control. Some were defeated through warfare, while others, seeing Kumasi's increasing strength, decided to join willingly instead of being destroyed. After defeating the Achiem in 1742, the Asante expanded their influence to the coastal regions. Between 1800 and 1816, under the reign of King Osei Bonsu, they defeated and incorporated the Fanti Confederacy into the Ashanti Kingdom, securing control over coastal trading networks. Here lay the genius of the Ashanti. Unlike many kingdoms that ruled only through fear, the Ashanti built a federation. Local rulers, chiefs, and kings were not stripped of their thrones. They remained in power, but now under the shadow of the Golden Stool. They were required to pay tribute to Kumasi and provide soldiers when the Asantehene demanded military service. In exchange, they gained protection, wealth, and the privilege of belonging to a larger, more powerful entity. It was brilliant politics. Loyalty was not bound by chains. It was bound by faith, tradition, and the promise of wealth. Every defeated state pledged loyalty not only to the king, but to the sacred Golden Stool itself. The Ashanti kingdom sat on rivers of gold. The very soil beneath their feet glittered with it. Men panned in streams, women sifted through dust, chiefs claimed mines where the earth bled treasure. Gold was everywhere, adorned on kings, worked into jewelry, woven into the identity of the people. It was more than wealth, it was power. From Kumasi, trading expeditions departed across the vast Sahara, transporting gold to the marketplaces of Timbuktu and distant lands. North African merchants brought back salt, textiles, and horses in exchange. Meanwhile, to the south, Europeans remained stationed along the coast, Portuguese, Dutch, and British, eager for Africa's precious metal. But gold was not the only currency of power. The Ashanti also traded in human lives. Prisoners of war captured in battle became goods sold to European traders who transported them across the Atlantic in bondage. It was cruel, it was heartbreaking, but it was the harsh reality of the empire. In return, the Ashanti received muskets, gunpowder, and the tools of modern war. Each campaign brought more captives, each captive brought more guns, and with more guns came more victories and power. It was a relentless cycle. War fed trade, trade fed wealth, and wealth fed war. The outcome was remarkable. The Ashanti emerged as one of the most powerfully armed nations in all of West Africa. Their forces advanced with organization, their opponents retreated in terror, and their influence expanded with each military operation. But the Ashanti would not stand forever. Enemies gathered, they wanted to expand further, and the British pressed closer, also wanting to expand and take control of the whole Gold Coast. War was coming. The kingdom that rose with golden power would soon be tested to its breaking point. The fall of the Ashanti was near. The Ashanti kingdom's collapse was not immediate. It was a gradual decline caused by both internal conflicts and continuous warfare. Within the kingdom, conflicts over succession and competing chiefs undermined the solidarity that had previously made the Ashanti invincible. However, it was the confrontation with the British that determined their destiny. The Anglo-Ashanti Wars, 5 in total, were the hammer blows that broke the kingdom. The early conflicts had already started in the beginning of the 1800s. The Ashanti aimed to gain control of coastal access to manage trade, but the Fante, with British support, fought back. When the Ashanti followed escaped rebels into Fante territory in 1806 and the British wouldn't give them up, war began. This developed into the First Anglo-Ashanti War, where the Ashanti displayed their military might and achieved victory, but they also gained adversaries including the British and an alliance of other ethnic groups like the Fantes and Gas, who would later return with greater force. The Second War against the British began in 1863. British expansion along the coastline came into conflict with Ashanti struggles to preserve their power. Illness brought the combat to an early end, but the conflict continued to boil. During the Third Anglo-Ashanti War in 1873, the British were committed to eliminating Ashanti authority. Advanced weaponry and well-trained forces moved toward Kumasi. The Ashanti resisted bravely, but their arms and military methods were no match for the British and their coalition of regional tribes, plus Hausa forces imported from Nigeria. Kumasi was destroyed by fire, symbolizing the kingdom's weakening power. The Fourth War in 1895 ended without a fight. The Ashanti, weakened by decades of war and political division, could not resist. The British annexed the territory, making it part of their growing kingdom. However, the Ashanti remained unbroken. In 1900, when the British governor insisted on sitting upon the Golden Stool, the holy symbol of Ashanti independence, the Ashanti nation rebelled once more under the brave leadership of Queen Ya Asantewa. Both men and women grabbed weapons in the War of the Golden Stool. It was a final battle for honor and freedom. But eventually, although they never gave up the Golden Stool and managed to hide it and protect it, the British overcame the Ashanti opposition and sent the Asantehene Prempeh I, Ya Asantewa, and other Ashanti royals into exile in the Seychelles. It took about 77 years for the British to entirely conquer and subdue the Ashanti. The Ashanti kingdom was overcome and merged into the British Gold Coast colony. Internal conflicts, the depletion from constant battles, and the irresistible power of British colonial rule ended one of Africa's most remarkable empires. Yet the Ashanti legacy lived on in their culture, their traditions, and their unbroken identity.